5 in Year 6. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Miss Stewart and I teach at Seal Primary School, and Mrs Wallis-Croft and I are going to be taking it in turns each day to read to you from the brilliant book The House with Chicken Legs. Yesterday you heard Mrs Wallis-Croft read you the prologue and chapter 1, and today I'm going to read you chapter 2 called Benjamin. I hope you enjoy it. Benjamin. Jack stands on the wall, his grey-black feathers ruffling in the breeze as he watches me struggle to squeeze a thigh bone back into place. The sun is high in the sky, but the air is still cold. Only a small part of the fence collapsed last night, but my hands are frozen, so it's taking longer than it should to fix. Caw! Jack shouts an alarm right next to my ear that makes me wince as I turn around. A boy aged about my age is standing just a few paces away. I blink, wondering if my daydreams are becoming more real, as well as more frequent, but he doesn't disappear. My heart races with excitement. He's a real-life living boy. His long dark coat is open and a tiny winter lamb is poking its nose out from beneath his armpit. Are those bones real? The boy looks at the femur in my hand and the assortment of bones sticking out of the wall. Yes. No. I scramble to my feet and try to block his view of the nearest obviously human skull. What I mean is they aren't real. The lie catches in my throat and I feel my face reddening. They look real. A smile plays at the corner of his mouth. He doesn't seem scared, just curious. Well, I suppose they are real. I rest the femur on top of the wall, my fingers trembling. I don't want to scare him away. What I mean is they aren't fresh. He raises an eyebrow. Like I didn't kill anyone. Oh, I didn't think you did. He looks along the wall, then beyond it to the house. It's sitting low, legs folded underneath it, so it looks fairly normal, like a small log cabin. Are you on holiday or something? I just moved here with my grandmother. I've never noticed this house before. Where did it come from? It walked here. Baba would scold me for telling the truth, but I learnt a long time ago that nobody believes me when I say the house walks anyway, and it's easier than making up even more ridiculous lies. The boy looks from the house to me and smiles politely. He thinks I'm joking and he's waiting for the real explanation. I'm Marinka. I hold out my hand, eager to change the subject and touch a real-life, living person. I suppose technically Baba is alive, but she doesn't count. That with her being so old. The boy takes my hand in his. It's warm and slightly damp with sweat. A smile bursts across my face and my cheeks ache with the force of it. I can't remember the last time I spoke to a living person, let alone touched one. It must have been at least a year ago, even longer since it was someone my own age. I'm Benjamin. He pulls his hand away and I wonder for a moment if I gripped it too tightly, but then I'm distracted by the lamb wriggling under his coat. Can I stroke it, I ask. Benjamin nods and gently ruffles the top of the lamb's head. It's tiny. He's only a few days old, an orphan. I'm taking him home to hand-rear him. How wonderful. I'd love a lamb. Benjamin looks at Jack curiously. He's strutting back and forth along the wall, his eyes firmly locked on the lamb. Oh, Jack wouldn't hurt him, I say, wondering just for a moment if he would. Is he your pet? Sort of. I lift my elbow and Jack hops onto it. I raised him from a chick. He was an orphan too. I found him on the island of Standing Stones. Did your house walk there too? Benjamin smiles, and his eyes shine with mischief. The house can't walk on water. It swam there. I laugh nervously as it occurs to me how ridiculous that must sound to him. Benjamin tucks the lamb deeper into his coat and glances up at the sky. A cold wave of panic crashes over me because he's about to leave and I'll be alone again. This could be my last chance to talk to the living person for, well, maybe years. Would you like some kvass? I ask quickly. What's that? A drink. I bite my lip, wishing I'd offered him something else. We're far away from Steeps, in a place that Baba calls the Land of Lakes. Of course Benjamin won't know what kvass is, and it would probably taste really strange to him. The lamb bleats, incredibly powerful for such a small thing. Something for the lamb, I exclaim far too loudly as the idea hits me. I should. Benjamin looks at the house suspiciously, and I wonder if it woke up and did something to scare him, like shift its weight or poke out a claw. I glance back and relieved to see it's still asleep. Please, my chest aches from wanting and willing him to stay. I hadn't met anyone round here yet, I say, and I'd like to learn about the town and... My voice trails away as I look into Benjamin's eyes. They're big and brown and friendly, and my heart does a little flip as I realise he's going to stay. All right, he smiles. I'll try some kvass, and if you bring some warm water out, I've got something to feed the lamb. I tread softly so as not to wake the house. We used to play a game where one of us called Baba Yaga's footsteps, in which I would try to sneak up on the house and touch its legs before it heard me and chase me away. Because of that game, I know all the house's blind and deaf spots and all the places I can sit and watch for the living without it even knowing. Baba is asleep in her chair by the fire. I decide cocoa would be more familiar to Benjamin and take longer to drink than kvass. I silently lift 3 mugs from the shelf above the hearth, scoop cocoa, milk, powder and sugar into 2 of them, and carefully pour warm water from the kettle hanging above the fire into all 3. Jack lands on the porch with a thud and his claws click across the wooden floor towards me. I shoot him an angry look and lift my finger to my lips. He stops, tilts his head and shrugs his wings in a nonchalant apology. As I creep out of the mugs, he follows me, his claws tapping even louder than before. Honestly, sometimes I think he wants to get me into trouble. Benjamin is sitting on a large rock overlooking the valley, just the other side of the fence. It's big enough for both of us, and another flutter of excitement runs through me, because in a moment I will be sitting next to a real-life living person. Maybe we'll talk and become friends. Maybe he'll visit again, and we'll go for walks and play games like the other children do. Or at least I think they do. My heart feels like it might burst at the thought, and the mugs tremble in my hands. The bone gate would rattle and wake the house, so I step over the wall where the fence has fallen. A cool gust of wind takes my breath away, and I'm not supposed to go further than the fence, but every time I do, even though it's never for more than a few paces, I feel more alive. Everything seems bigger, brighter and more colourful, and I wonder if this is for how my mother felt when she went out in the middle of the night and stole the gondola. This smells like cocoa, Benjamin says after sniffing his drink. Oh, it's cocoa. I thought we were having kvass. This is warmer than kvass. I take a sip of mine and the buzz as the warmth and sugar flow down my belly. Benjamin balances his mug on the edge of the rock and pulls the bottle and crumpled envelope out of his pocket. Is that for the lamb, I ask. Yes, it's a special kind of milk powder. He pours some of the bottle into the bottle, covers it with warm water, shakes it, and then swaps the bottle top for one with a teat on it. Would you like to feed him? Oh, yes, please. I put my mug down and Benjamin lifts the lamb onto my lap. I try to wrap my shawl around him, but it's difficult because his thin legs keep kicking clumsily around. Eventually, he settles into an uncomfortable-looking position, and Benjamin passes the bottle over. The lamb sucks greedily, milk dripping out of the side of its mouth. Jack squawks theatrically and struts off to the withered heather bush, where he makes a show of flipping over stones to look for bugs. He's jealous. I'll make it up to him later, give him something nice from the pantry. Benjamin watches the lamb for a while, then picks up his mug again. So will you go to school in town? I shake my head. I'm homeschooled because we move around so much. I don't tell him it's because I have to learn how to be the next guardian, that I have to learn language of the dead and the dead journey words, how to cook for the dead and guide them through the gate. Baba says the living aren't supposed to know these things. I'd rather talk about his life anyway. Do you go to school, I ask, wondering what it would be like to sit in a room filled with children and play games with them during the breaks. Just imagining it makes me feel slightly giddy. Usually, I've been suspended though. What does that mean? I'm not allowed to go for a week. It's not because I'm bad or anything, Benjamin asks quickly. It was because of a stupid argument with some boys that got out of hand. None of us meant to, Benjamin sighs. I just don't fit in there, you know? I nod, but I don't know. I've never had the chance to see if I fit in or not. How come you move around so much, he asks. My grandmother is a musician. She likes to travel for inspiration. I pass the empty bottle back to Benjamin. but keep the lamb on my lap. He's so warm. There's nothing like the warmth of the living. It seems to soak deep into my soul. What about your parents? Benjamin swigs the last of his cocoa. My parents died when I was a baby. The image of Baba Yaga's house desperately trying to outrun the flames engulfing it burns through my mind. I blink it away and take a slow breath in, trying to ease the cramping in my chest. My mother died when I was a baby too, Benjamin says quietly. A ripple of understanding relaxes the muscles around my ribs. It feels nice to have something in common with Benjamin, even if it's something as awful as this. I think about my mother all the time. Benjamin carefully wraps the lamb spottle up in wax paper, even though I never knew her. I know what you mean, I nod. I wonder what my life would be like if my parents had lived. My chest tightens again as I think of my gondola-stealing mother and my roof-dancing father. Would they have understood why I didn't want to be a garden? Would they have let me be something else? I turned to Benjamin, willing him to change the subject. So it's just you, your grandmother, and Jackdaw? And your walking house? Benjamin lifts his eyebrows and smiles. Yep, I nod. And we move around a lot. And I don't go to school, so it can be pretty lonely. I laugh, although it's not funny at all. Well, it can be lonely at school too, even when you're surrounded by people. How can it be lonely surrounded by people? You know, if people aren't friendly or they don't understand you. I think about all the night guiding the dead, how I can be surrounded by them but still feel alone. I always thought it was because they're dead and I'm alive. I didn't realise you could feel like that among the living. So what's with the bones in your wall? Benjamin asks. It's kind of tradition, like Halloween or something like that. I look down to the town down the lake and the little villages surrounding it. Do you live in the town? I live in that village there. Benjamin leans closer and pointing across the valley. I feel the warmth of his breath against my cheek and I stop still, my whole body tingling. He leans back and points in the other direction, along the mountain. I've been helping out at the farm over there in the next valley. It was my father's idea. He wants to keep me busy while I'm suspended. That's where I got the lamb from. Benjamin nods at the lamb, now asleep in my lap. I'm a bit worried my father won't let me keep him, to be honest. Oh, I'm sure he will. How could he resist? I stroke the soft downy fur under the lamb's chin. You're probably right, Benjamin nods slowly. But I should have asked him first. He's not too happy with me, you know, over the suspension thing. He pauses and his eyes widen. Hey, I got an idea. Why don't you keep the lamb just until tomorrow? I'll ask my father tonight and then come back and pick him up in the morning. Would you mind? My head spins. Of course I want to keep the lamb and see Benjamin again. And in the morning, I've dreamed about making a friend as long as I can remember. A living human friend my own age to talk to and do things with. And Benjamin and I have so much in common. It's like this is meant to be. But what about the house and Baba? If they find out I've been talking to a living soul, they won't let me out of their sight for a month, probably longer. I look at Benjamin and his big easy smile melts all my worries away. I'd love to have him, I say. But the moment Benjamin walks away and I step back over the wall, my worries crowd around me 100 times darker and heavier than before, because the house has sat up on its haunches and is staring straight at me, a deep frown on its 2 front windows. And that, year 5 and 6, is the end of the chapter Benjamin, and Mrs. Williscroft will read you the next chapter tomorrow. Take care, bye!